Welcome to part 2 of this electronic Dredd Lawgiver build. In this video, we'll be focusing on the non-3D printed parts, starting with the parts we need for the action-only version, and then moving on to the biggest part of this video, and that is soldering, coding, and testing all the electronics we need to get this working. That'll get us ready for the final video in this series, and that is paint and finishing this ready for action. The first part we're going to do is the plastic clear transparent windows. These go in the magazine. This, I would like to stress, is an optional part. You can just leave these clear, drop the bullets in upside down, right? Drop the bullets in like that, and then that's pretty much good to go. These transparent windows work together with this little bracket here to give you a realistic sort of viewport into the bullets there. So all you need for this is the, I can't remember what to call the part, but it's in the supplement package. It's like magazine window cutter. If that's not what it's called, I'll rename the file. And all you got to do is get yourself a thin piece of 8x, well, it doesn't have to be 8x10. It just has to be any size really, but thin acrylic. I have 3 different sizes of this holder, so you can just pick the one that corresponds to the acrylic you bought, or if you've got some weird size, just DM me, I can make a custom one. It takes like 5 seconds. So we don't actually lay this out first, because cutting this thing out of the piece of acrylic is sort of impossible. We have to snap this. We're going to score it with this X-Acto knife, and to snap it, we need to go all the way across. Lay it out on the top, and then I'm going to line it up on both sides. This doesn't have to be aligned to the fraction of a millimeter. I would default slightly small than slightly big, because if it's too big, you're going to have to sand it down after. Be very, very gentle with your first pass. It likes to move around. And actually, there is no way I can do this way. And I'm going to run this across. Gentle first. It likes to move. And then a little deeper. Much deeper. And finally, I like to take the back end and just kind of score it and peel the cover back a little bit. So I'm going to take the top end. You actually see the sliver of acrylic coming out. This is a really good way to score acrylic. There we go. Put that over here. Again, defaulting it to make it a fraction of a millimeter too small. Here's the first one. Overlap that a teensy bit. Then the little angles. That should be good. So to cut it, I am going to actually snap it off with 2 other pieces of acrylic. You can use wood or whatever you want, but it's important to give it a nice crisp edge. Otherwise, when you snap it, like if you try to take it over the table, it'll flex a lot, and then you'll end up with 20, 30 pieces of acrylic. Try to get something nice and sharp and sandwich it if you can. That'll give it nowhere else to break, but on the place you want. Lined up properly, lift it up, and hope. Well, this is really hard to do this way. All right, just gonna cut that off, save the plastic for when I need this acrylic again. And then go along. And for the last little bit, I'm actually going to use some side cutters. That way it doesn't matter so much how much I cut into it. So to test fit this, I got to remember which way is up again. Other way, every time. So this way up, I'm going to take this piece and this piece, and then put that weirdly on top of it. Otherwise it tends to grab underneath, so put it on top. One side, other side, and we'll just slide it down. Perfect fit. Now that's all done. Let's move on to the next piece, and that is the display. This one's much easier. You just have the 3D printed display holder, and I have included in the files a 4x6 photograph version of the display. If you have an inkjet printer, you can print it at full size and it should fit perfectly, or you can just send it to any Photoshop, and just like that, got ourselves some Lawgiver displays. So the only thing we really need to do with this one is, all you need to do is cut it with a pair of scissors. Sheesh, I was thinking you had to be all exact with this. You do not. Just cut it with a pair of scissors. So I'm going to grab our freshly primed Lawgiver off the hook, and I am going to put this, see there's a little gap for the LEDs there? You want to keep that facing up. There. Put that in behind. Just slide it around. Yeah, you know, I was thinking you'd have to glue it, but this stays pretty solid. You can just stick it on the back and slide in this display holder. There, looks good to me. Call that done. The last parts we got to do are the recoil mechanism and the trigger pin. Come to think of it, the trigger pin is made out of 4mm brass rod. It doesn't have to be brass. It can be any soft metal really, but I find brass is kind of the smoothest and frankly the cheapest. And the recoil rods, I am just using, this stuff is for welding. It's cheap 1/8" welding rod. I'm in Canada, so we have a stupid mix between metric and imperial. You can use 3mm if you're somewhere in the world that makes sense, or you can bore it out to 4mm, your call. I'm gonna go outside and I'm gonna show you how to use the awesomely named Blade Runner to actually chop these way easier. And there we go, a second set of metal bars. And that is the last of our non-electronic, non-3D printed parts. We have our magazine windows, our display, which is in our Lawgiver there. And then we have our recoil bars. Here, I'll show you how they fit really quick though. Here, you just put that on there, drop them in. I would actually have to say these are sort of optional. It works fine without them. I'm not gonna lie. I like having these because see how it captures the mechanism here? This makes it slide a lot smoother, looks a lot cooler, and you have no way of twisting this to actually scratch the paint or, you know, impact it in any way. So I highly recommend these, but it does work just fine without them. So let's put these away and go get our electronics trays. So I brought two versions of the electronics with me. On one side, we have it divided into the 10 individual modules that make up the Lawgiver. These are the exact modules you'll find pictures of in GitHub, and under each module, you'll also find a component list as well as a wire guide. The wire guide lists all the different colors, shapes, sizes of wires you'll need, and I'd like to start this by saying you don't need to do that. I like connectors, I like color coding, and I also think it's easier to show. So I have color coded all of the wires by component, as well as added connectors. There's tons of little JST connectors. You don't need to really add a single connector. This can all just kind of slot in together, just soldered together in one big bundle. But I'm going to show you with connectors because A, as I said, it's easier to show, and B, it's more organized that way. Like sometimes you end up with problems, and just being able to unplug the component that has a problem has a lot of value to me. Let's deal with this. I'm going to walk you through each of the components and why it is what it is. First up, we got the OLED display. All 7 of these pins are going to the Arduino because we're going to be using the 3.3 volt power provided by the Arduino and not the 5 volt power provided by the box. On the spec for this, it says it can take 5 volts. It lies. I have 2 in the garbage to prove it. So this is the, I'm going to call it the action module. It basically is the trigger button, reload button. There are 2 grounds that go to our little power module and 2 pins that go to the Arduino. Then we have our 7-segment NeoPixel. It has 1 wire, that's a signal wire that goes through all 7 NeoPixels, as well as a positive negative to our power junction box. Then we have our boot LEDs. This is, the green one means your boot is okay, and the red one means you failed. So we'll go through what that means. Oh, we went through that actually in the beginning. Each one of them has a 25 ohm resistor. Depending on how bright you want it, you can go anywhere from 10 ohms to make it brighter, or maybe 100, 120 ohms to make it dim. I find 25 to be a good number. This is our power module. This has the power switch on it. It's already installed in the 3D printed part because you actually have to solder it in place. So to demo it, I thought I'd just show it the way it is. I have surrounded the whole thing with shrink wrap. You don't really need to do that. There's nothing on the battery with exposed wires, but it looks better and fits better, I guess. So essentially, this goes between the battery, which goes to this Dean's connector here, and it interrupts at the switch and then goes to the buck converter. You don't want to go to the buck converter first or you'll just slowly drain your battery. This goes up to the power junction box and provides power. What can I say? So this is the sound module. It consists of a DF player mini MP3 player, a memory card for said MP3 player, and an amplifier. It does have an onboard amplifier, but it's not nearly powerful enough to drive 2 speakers. So what I do is have the audio out, the sort of amplified audio, go to this amplifier, which then cranks it up. This one has a little potentiometer you can use to set volume, but the way it comes, unless there was a problem with it, is set like super good. There's another option I'd like to talk about really briefly, and that's the DF Player Pro. Craig has actually added a library for this into the GitHub code. When I go through the code later, I'll just make a brief mention of how you can switch over to this. If you use this one, it does have a much more powerful amplifier and it has onboard memory. So it simplifies the soldering somewhat. You don't need the SD card. You don't need the amplifier. It's hooked up in the same way in that it has a TX-RX, same as this TX-RX, you know, transmit, receive, and it has a speaker in and out. Same with this, speaker in and out. So the wiring is the same. You just don't need to connect the 2 together, essentially. This is the power junction box. It is wired up on the back using this, where is it? There it is. Very stiff single core, I believe it's AWG 28. You can use 30 if you want. But this here will connect up all of the positives and negatives to allow you to take the voltage in and distribute it around, with the exception of this black one, which I have painted black, because this has a curve on the back. Here, I'll hold it up. So you see that little junction there? This is a double negative. This is to take the 2 negatives from the action module. And I'd like to caveat that you can replace this with a different connector. You can do away with the connector altogether. But if you plug the voltage into this one, you will cook your buck converter very quickly. And you can also, you probably won't damage the other modules by doing it, but you could cause a problem with the voltage in and out from one side, jumping over to the other component and then back, causing a short. So that's why I've painted these. I probably would have been smarter using a different connection, but I only had this one kind of connector. So off to the voice recognition. I have used the microphone that came with it, clipped it, and soldered it in. I'll show you how to do that later. This is a really simple one. This goes to transmit, receive from the Arduino. This is power, enough said. The Arduino itself, the only thing I've really connected to it, because this is sort of like a last step. Once you've finished all these, you just like connect everything to the Arduino and you're done. So the Arduino only really has its own power. And this one connector here, this is for the action, or sorry, for the fire LED. You plug it in there and that's its little data pin. And yes, you can solder it directly. There's no problem with that. And I guess the last but not least is the speakers. This remains unsoldered because when you put it into the caddy, it has to go through and then be connected up to the other speaker. So you can't solder the speakers together until they're installed. This is the only part of the entire Lawgiver we kind of have to solder in place. So we'll deal with that later. So now we've been through all the components, let's put it aside and make our own. All right, so we have our components and we have this page that I've printed off of GitHub. This is going to tell me which of each wire I'm going to need. So I've got 7 different colors. You only really need 1, but again, this makes it a lot easier to illustrate. Bring it out. Got my ruler, take it around this way. And my clippers. And I'm going to start at the OLED. And what I'm going to do is clip each wire, put it in here so we can solder it up. So let me go through. I got black, white. This is silicone wire, by the way, and I would highly recommend this over standard wire. It's not that much more expensive, but before I discovered silicone wire, my life was a living hell. Every time I tried to solder something together that was delicate like this and move it, the wire would snap. And this was terrible until a good friend of mine, thank you, Elliot, introduced me to the wonderful world of silicone wire. This stuff is almost impossible to snap. It's so flexible. It also seems to conduct better. I don't know what it is, but it's magic, and I will never, ever use a different kind of wire again. This is, I believe, 26 AWG. It may be 28, but it's thicker. This is what we're going to use for our main power wire. And all of these other wires, they are 30 AWG. It's very thin wire, but it still conducts very well, and it is more than enough for the voltages we're dealing with. So I'm going to pull all this out. That gives me all 7 colors. And now I'm going to go through my diagram and flip it around so I can read it and start a chopping. Okay, so for the OLED, I'm going to need 44 millimeters and 103 millimeters of black. Easy way to do that, just get yourself a ruler, pull it out, and cut it off. There is 44 and 41.5. Now you don't need to be that exact. Don't stress over it. What I've done is, he says doing exactly 41.5. What I've done is measured out what would be the ideal wire lengths. If you are plus minus a few millimeters on any of these, it doesn't matter. And if you defer to the side of plus, you can go really as long as you like. Just realize that eventually you're going to have to shove all this into a tiny little space. So, oh, green. I ran out of green a long time ago and I replaced it with purple. I like purple better anyway. All right, so that is 99 millimeters. So these are JST 2.54 connectors. This is the female connector, and it has the 2 trailing pins. We'll be soldering these as we go, and we're done all the soldering. We'll do some crimping. And these are the male connectors, and they need pins crimped in them. So I'll show you how to do that as its own thing. Oh, I'd like to point out that, yeah, here's a bit of a correction. You probably, if you have a keen eye, you may have noticed that there is a 3-pin here. This was originally so you can detach the LED from the front if you need to. There's literally no reason to do that. So rather than subject ourselves to one more connector, we're just going to bypass that and do a yellow wire of the entire length. So this not used. All right, the junction box. This is a toughie because, oh, there it is. Okay. So here's how you get this stuff out. So go way too long, twizzle it around. Actually, what works better is just a regular X-Acto knife. You're just trying to strip the insulation. Go around a couple of times, give it a bit of a bend, then pull it off. There. Let's do that a couple of times to make sure we have enough out. There, we'll be soldering directly to the wire, so we don't want any insulation. And this one is 44 and 49. Voice recognition, nice easy one. First, we're going to try the pliers. Oh, that worked. We don't need these. And next, we're going to take it to about that long, just past the neck. And we're going to cut it there. And the mic drops straight out, and you can remove the insulation very gently. There. Now, this kind of insulation that's on the end, you have to remove it with a torch. You can scrape at it, but you're just going to get at the surface and it's not going to do anything. You want to go quickly with the torch. See that little, there we go. Whoop, that may have been a bit much. No, it's got pretty good. All right, I'm going to try it from the other side. Just make sure it's gone. There we go. And that exposes the bare copper. All right, note on stripping. First, I only strip exactly as much as I need when I need it. Wires fray very easily, so even though I know I'm going to have to strip this side for crimping, I am only going to strip 3 mils off this side, just a little bit, so I can go into the pins. We'll strip the rest later when we need to. So this 22 millimeters is a little weird. I'm going to zoom way in so you can see what I'm doing. There, actually move the camera down. Whee! This reveals the magic, I don't know. Okay, put it over white. So what we're going to do is go a little bit before the middle, and we're going to use our X-Acto knife to strip it. So we're just going to roll it around, and that's going to strip it. If you accidentally push hard and cut it, throw it away, get another one. So then we're going to push on the one side, so we're going to hold it in place, that's the shorter side, and pull it a little bit. That's going to reveal some in the middle. What we're doing here is creating a little Y adapter for the negative. So I'm going to roll this one here, pull it, that's going to strip it, and then I'm going to go to the other side, roll it, and strip it, and fold it in half. That is a nice, neat little Y adapter for the negative. We're going to put that in there, and I'll show you what to do with it in a bit. So the 2 shorter wires here, we can actually put them right in. We're not going to solder them right now. You're going to crimp them, and then at the end, we're going to solder them to the Arduino. All we care about right now are these 2, and we're going to trim both ends because they're actually going to this connector, because that's the connector that would allow you to disconnect the fire and the reload from the Arduino. So doing both ends on that one, both ends on this one, and then one end on the 2 negative wires that go from each of the modules, each of the buttons. And put all that back. And the short wires. The short wires kind of go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, each one getting a tiny bit longer than the other. That's so when it sits flat, that the connector will point straight up. If I did them all even and you turned it, it would actually pull the connector. So it's a little bit of alignment. And this one gets both sides because we'll be soldering them to this connector as well at the same time. So each of the shorter wires gets both sides. And then finally, each of these 7 just gets one end. The last one we got to do is the power. Oof, it's getting very colorful. Oh, speakers will be the last one. All right, so one end each on the very long ones, and then both ends on all the other ones. The ones that are going to the Dean's connector need to be as long as the Dean's connector. You need to have a good connection right here. So what we're going to do is make sure that that is long enough. It is not. So I'm going to adjust this by 2. I'm going to take it back and then do the other end. I got this little shorty. Cut both ends of it as well. And put all of those in there. And then last but not least, the speakers. And that's it. We're off to soldering. All right, first thing I'm going to do is turn my fans on. This is my airbrush. Hopefully you can hear me over this racket, but this is my airbrush booth. It also doubles as a soldering booth. It does a really good job of pulling the fumes from the solder out. I've actually got a second fan up top, so the two fans work together to kind of turbo duct all that air out. So first thing we're going to do is the OLED screen, and we got to desolder these pins. So I'm going to very carefully, very gently lift up, try to separate these and walk them off. You can just clip them in the middle too, make it a little easier. Just wiggle that off. And same with the other side. So I got the screen protector on here, so I don't really care about crimping it. Just gonna be a little careful about it. And then we're gonna pop these pins off. I use these kind of tweezers because they stay closed. Makes it a lot easier to handle things. I also have these ones that you gotta pinch close too. Depends what I'm doing. Alright, so I'm going to grab the short wires, pour all these out. Actually, I made a bit of a mistake here. I cut both ends thinking this end will go, but actually I like the other end on the OLED, so we'll just, we'll work with it. So to know where to start working down, you want to start with a black wire and you want to solder that onto the ground. That's our first thing. What we're going to do is just very quickly go through and tin all of the joints and tin all of the wires so we don't have to worry about solder after. Alright, so going from the bottom, we're going to go CS, which is gray. Put that part back in the box, and now go with the other side. So you'll start here where gray is at the bottom. I'm going to tin all these ones really quick. There we go. Ready to go. Alright, next thing we're going to do is the action module. Going to start off with the switch. Doesn't matter, there's no polarity, so just stick one on. Remember, we didn't strip one of these wires. That's just so we wouldn't get confused. And then the shorter of the two black wires. I like to thread it up through the hole and then sort of press it down with my fingernail after. And twist it a bit. It can stick up a bit, it doesn't matter. Now we're going to take that back, hold on to the wire, and we're going to solder on the connector. Doesn't matter which side you solder to, as long as you crimp the white on the other side as well. set that aside for the moment and grab the micro switch. Go. I like to do the... Oh, no, we forgot a big step here. There's no way we can put the heat shrink on after we have soldered both sides. Forgot about that. We're going to take that off and do I have the heat shrink? Oh yes, I do. I'm going to thread a very thin one. Sorry. And then one of our thicker ones. And just gonna there, finesse that back through. And I'm gonna take this butane soldering torch without the tip. There's actually a grill here which makes a perfect heat shrink tool. Go around. Oh, actually I don't want to have that around my other heat shrink. It's very gentle. To be honest, this isn't 100% necessary anyway. It's just pretty and I like it. Okay, so back to this guy. Perfect. I'm going to grab a bit of that thicker heat shrink again, run it down, and a piece of the thinner stuff. Oh, that's why I put the 3 mil on. I should have used 2 mil on this and 3 mil on that. It's okay. Honestly, the heat shrink's mostly for show. I find it makes everything, I don't know if it makes anything stronger, but I just like it. Make sure I don't let it burn, just very gentle, that's all it needs. Then I have the black wire. And that's all she wrote for this guy. Alright, next we got the easy one. And this is the 7-segment LED. Oh, the only thing you really got to make sure is this one says out, this one says in. In. If you do it to the out, you will be resoldering. And actually, sorry, there's a bit of a trick to this too. Put it like this. These like that. Then when I run the wire, I should be able to go to this pad at an angle. Bend it to the right way. And that's it. So the LED might be about the most convoluted of the bunch. So I'll do my best. Biggest thing to remember is the long wire is positive, and that goes to the colored one. And the short wire is negative, so that goes to the black. We're gonna start by doing this little guy and just clamping them in. Then getting the one we stripped on both ends, that's the medium one. I'm gonna pinch it. I'm going to fold it over. I'm going to kind of hook it if I can. Oh. There. Doesn't have to be amazingly well, but it has to be reasonably solid. I'm going to take, whoa, don't want to knock that off. Take a little dollop of solder. There. Okay, so now I'm going to move it over. I'm going to do the 2 negatives. Again, the negative is to the shorter of the two. Flip that around. Oh, I did a dump. First things first, slide on the heat shrink onto the LEDs. I will desolder this one after and correct my mistake. But first things first, get it on there. Slide the heat shrink on, and I'm going to resolder that negative. Next is we're going to take the shorter of these wires, of the purple wires, and that goes to the red. Get the shorter of the blue wires. The last thing we're going to do is slide these down with the covering the wires all in a row. Like that, and then grab our torch, just lock all these guys in place. Now we're going to grab two more heat shrinks, slide them down on top of this. Now we're going to take our resistors, and we're going to cut them fairly short. And we're going to solder it onto each of those wires. It does not matter which one. So next thing I'm going to do is solder these wires on to the connector. It does not matter which one goes onto which pin as long as black is in the middle. Then, as I've said before, when you do the other half of this connector, purple to purple, blue to blue. If I was a smarter man, I would have put the black on next. I have to thread the needle a bit here. It is ready for the next step. Before we move on to the next module, we got a brief interlude because we got to let this one dry for a few seconds. And that is color coding our double negative for the action module and our power input. Power input doesn't actually need to be color coded, but I think it looks better. So I'm going to color code it. So I've just got some red paint, some black paint. I'm going to use my normal closed pliers. I'll not so carefully paint this guy. Give this a nice coat of red. Did quite a bit on this brush, so I'm just going to dab it around thick first and then go smush it around after. Looks good to me. I don't think I need to do anything else with that, so I'm going to set it aside as well. Next thing we got to do is the audio module, and this consists of the MP3 player and the amplifier. The first thing we're going to do is depin this MP3 player. Now, depinning this isn't so easy because there's a line of tiny little resistors along the inside. So if we just clip it, we're going to smash these little resistors. So the easy solution to that is clip it. Whoa. Clip it. Third pin in. Go two more pins over. So you got 3 pins on each side on the outside. And let's lift these out. Lifting and twisting so I don't touch that little resistor. I'm going to cut it again. Once it is cut, I should just be able to grab the plastic and slide it right off. I know this is a bit of a pain and there's a lot of other MP3s on the market, and to be honest, we now have support for the DF Pro, which combines both of these pieces, so you don't have to do this. But I love this MP3 player. It's very loud for its size. It has no lag, and the SD card allows you to change files on the fly. So, and it's also extremely cheap. So it's still my favorite player, so I tend to default to it. The only problem with it, of course, is just what we're doing here, getting these pins off. But it's only like, what, it's 2 minutes? I can live with that. So I'm just gonna get these last pins out. And there we go, let's start de-pinning it. Oh, turn it sideways here. And it's ready to go. So, first thing I'm going to do with this thing, actually, I'd like to flip it over because I'm kind of crushing the slot. I'll flip it onto its side. I'm going to put solder on the first 3 joints on the back corner. This one is positive and receive and transmit. Then on the other side, I'm going to do a negative terminal and the speaker out. So I'll start from the easiest at the back, and that is the speaker out. We use white for positive, gray for negative. Always like to make sure these wires are flush, that way they're not prone to breaking. Then from this end, I'm actually going to start by cutting this resistor. I'm going to leave a little bit extra here, and then do a shorter end here. So it sort of looks like, I just going to balance it like that. Doesn't have to be exact. I'm going to grab it with some tweezers from the short end and feed it through, just barely through that second hole. So it's sticking out. Next, I'm going to run the positive wire. And then I'm going to run transmit wire that does not need a resistor. There we go. Oh, almost came out. Remember to give that a sec. There we go. And then grab my other helping hand. I'm going to solder that onto the end of the resistor. How do you like that? Check this out. Very hard to burn silicone wire. With the regular plastic wire, that would have been bad news. Silicone wire, it doesn't care. Just quickly, while I have this in here, I'm going to slide this in. A little bit of heat shrink. And grab my torch. Give that a blast. Oh, I realized something. I forgot bridging wires. My bad. This actually is for the other side. Here, I'm going to set this aside for a sec and do the amplifier. And this is what I find to be almost the most annoying solder joint of this entire build. Though it's not that annoying. It's taking both the negatives and putting them through the one little hole. This is conditionally annoying because sometimes it just goes right in and sometimes it, how shall we say, does not. There we go. Got it. I'm going to bend these a little bit because they tend to try to fly apart and then they'll come out. Do that plenty of solder. And there is one. I'll rectify my mistake from before. These two have to go through this little hole. Gotta push them together a lot more. There seems to be a trailing wire on this one. Gotta really flatten out. There we go. Maybe that is a much better way of doing it. I know for the future. There, now I can connect this one where the positive was before. I turn that sideways. Oh, I don't need the helping hands. What am I doing? Alright. Probably need to put a little bit on the joint there. Hold it out before. And the last one I gotta do is swing. Well, it's not the last actually. I got one more connection. It's from the speakers out to the amplifier, otherwise we're not gonna get any sound. Rotate this over. I'm just gonna hold that in place. And that goes into there. Oh, it's gonna need a bit of solder. You know what, I'll tin this. Makes it easier. I'll tin these two. And there we go. I can detach that. Attach that. Then I'm just going to line this up. Don't want to go over these wires. Oh, that's nice and easy. I'm going to run this one. A positive to the positive. Sits there nicely. And negative to the negative speaker terminal. And be able to pull that out. There is our audio module, ready to go. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is the power module. We can't do this all the way because the switch has to go in from the bottom, but we can get this mostly done. So we're just going to throw the switch in there and continue on from here. I'm going to set aside the very long wires and just go to the short ones. These are going to be for our Dean's connector. So on Dean's, the sideways one is positive and the vertical, well, I guess it depends which way you're looking. Positive, negative. Be very careful. If you don't get that right, you'll end up with a dead buck converter. So I stripped this one a little more than the other ones so it can fit almost entirely across the post here. Make it nice and strong. And we're going to put a whole bunch of solder on this. I'm going to get a nice long ribbon, press these down, heat it up. There we go. Now for the negative, you notice that one side it's got more space. That's what you want to solder the face of the negative onto. A whole bunch on, we're just going to hold the heat on until it spreads out. There we go. Before we go any further, we're going to put on... Ow! I thought I was going to get to the first thing ever without burning myself. Okay. Ow! Alright, anywho's. Thread on our 3mm heat shrink. That's probably going to self-heat shrink. That is toasty. Evenly heat that. A nice rotisserie. Perfect. So we are going to solder the negative from this to the negative in. We'll solder that from the back. Do a little blind soldering. Did I get it? Oh yeah. Oh, very poorly. There we go. And this one, I'm going to tin it, but it's going to remain hanging. It's going to remain hanging. That's going to go to one end of our switch. I am a fool. This tiny little wire is supposed to be red. It's a positive wire. Oh, there's the other one. The one thing I will never do is use a black wire as a positive wire. That is how you get smoke. I will be back in a moment. And this is going to go to the in positive. Hold on. I'm going to need to rotate this a bit. There we go. And then flip it around. And we're going to do these long wires to the positive out and the negative out. There are 2 positive ends and 2 negative ends and 2 outs. It doesn't matter which one you use, really. And with the exception of the 2 wires that go to the switch here. Actually, you know what? I'm going to tin that one too. I hate trailing wires. There we go. That is our power module. Now we're not going to install that switch until we're done the final paint, so we're going to set this aside. We're getting near the end here with the voice recognition module. Before I get started, I'm going to take an X-Acto knife and then cut off the top here. The electronics caddy is pretty exact, so taking this off will really help it fit. I'm going to start by soldering the microphone in, which is pretty straightforward. The red is ground. Oh, sorry. The green is ground and the red is positive. Oh, come on. This thing's just teasing me. There it goes. I had to give this one lots of solder just in case we didn't get all that insulation off. And for positive. Again, a lot more solder than necessary. I'm going to give that a bit of a clip. Now this is a newer one with the 6mm electret mic. There's an older one with a 10mm mic. I have a caddy for each, so make sure you print the right one. Or if you did do the 6mm, you can drill it out for the 10mm mic. As long as you didn't do the 10mm caddy for the 6mm mic, you're totally fine. So the gray is the TX wire at the bottom. The white is your RX wire. Then voltage. Oh, this does not want to go in. There we go. after some of the other ones, this feels positively straightforward. Now we have the simplest module of the bunch, and that is the Arduino. First, we've got this pin, which should go to D13. Ah, there it is, right in the very, very corner. This is for the data for the 7-segment LED for fire. Actually, I find with these ones, you can just let them hang like this. We will solder that in place. Or not. Hopefully I didn't fill that hole. Ooh, I did a bit. Actually, that's a good thing. I was going to say we can put a dollop of solder in there and then reposition it. Now we can kind of do both at the same time. So it's angled down just a little bit, enough that I can get the connector on, but also enough that it's not going to interfere with the wire from that 3.3 volt. I'm just going to put it in vertically. Out of the red wire to the very bottom VIN pin. Then the ground pin above it. And we're all done. And now we come to the power distribution box. And the caveat that, again, you do not need to do all these little connectors. I recommend it. I like doing all these, but this one is not the easiest of the lot. I'm going to show you how to do it. First thing I'm going to do is balance this board the last two. And I'm just going to do my two main ones first. That is the double negative for the reload and fire, and the power in. So I'm going to start with the longer of the two wires. I'm going to balance it on this connector. I'm going to start by tacking this very first joint. And then the second one. And from here, I can start my first bend, which is to bend this up all the way to the top. And now, actually I shouldn't have started with that positive one. I should put this one in properly. That's on the top two there. And balance this across here. Once you've got these first two tacks in place, the rest is really easy. Perfect. Now I can do that first positive one. There we go. Ooh, bit sloppy, doesn't matter. Now I'm going to put the second one in. I'm making sure these are all lined up very well. Tack it down. Just like that. Put the next two in. These also need to be pretty flat, so see how it's riding up a bit? I'm not going to be initially concerned about it. I take my tweezers and then just push it down flat. I'm going to push it in. Hold on, I don't want to burn myself. Push that in. There, until it's against that. Tack that in place. Go around. Grab my tweezers and then turn it right here. There, it's going down along all three of these. It's going to ride a bit high, that is fine. Tack that. I'm going to push down. That'll keep that flat. Now for the last one, I'm going to curve it around not going to go to this first one. I'm going to turn it right about here. There, and push it down. And put it on the other side. So essentially we have negative, negative, then negatives going all the way up there, and then positives going all the way up and around here. Just going to give it a careful look. See if I didn't bridge anything by accident. Looks good to me. All done. Now we come to the last one, and frankly the easiest. I'm going to get out both speakers. They'll probably come with wires attached, or if not, that's great. Remove those wires. Add a bit of extra solder. Get rid of those. And then one of these can go back, because we're going to need to solder it on after we put them in the caddy. So with these guys, we're going to need to solder the two negatives together and the two positives. So we're going to kind of twist them together as much as we can. It doesn't have to be perfect. Then we're going to solder them together. You can get a lot of solder on there, it's fine. First side, blue is negative and purple is positive. And that's it, we're done. So now I have the initial soldering done. I'm going to grab my components and just make sure I have the right amount of heat shrink and connectors so we can put them together. So I'm going to take all of these out and then look in the same order. And what am I going to need for this? I'm going to need a 7-pin JST 2.54. I'm going to need 7 pins. 1, 2, what is it stuck? 4, 6, 7, and I'm going to need 7 pieces of heat shrink. Actually, I'm just going to save myself a minute and just do that right now. Perfect. That's the first one. And I put one side on here of each. Oh, I put a whole bunch of that on. So what am I going to need? Might as well do what I can now. And one of the 2mm, a little bit of that. This must be 3. I'm just going to take that off. There we go. There. Now I'm going to need 2 more 1mm. Or am I? No, I'm not. I've already got it on. I think that's it. Yeah, all I need is the 2-pin and 2 pins. Get that in there. This only needs a 2-pin connector. 2 pins. Oh, this has the DuPont connector. Just going to put the first side of the DuPont, the single pin connector. and then the pin for that. That's all it needs. And our LEDs, I'm going to need 3. And then a 3-pin connector and 3 pins. That's good to go. And then what do we need? The boot LEDs, the power. We can't do anything with the power right now until the end. Then the speakers, they don't need anything. The voice recognition, oh, actually, sorry, the Arduino. That needs a 2-pin and 2 pins. Boop. Doesn't need anything. The only thing we need here is a 2-pin and those, and same with this. So this should be relatively easy and fast. There we go. Now we can get rid of this and all of this. Keep it aside in case I forgot anything. Yep. Let's go through these one at a time. So let me show you the trick to using crimpers. See these 2 little butterfly wings at the top? They have to go in this part, which is much narrower. So what I do is I clip it twice, or click it twice. You can hear there's 5 clicks, I think. So go 1, 2, and then push 1 wing against it, push it in, and then 1 more click. And then you should be able to slide it in till the head is just visible like this, and that pin is now ready for crimping. For the wires, I usually take off about 5 millimeters or so, half a centimeter. And I don't do this earlier because the wires tend to get frayed as I'm handling it. So it's much easier to strip wires just before you need them. There. So starting at the end, we're going to feed this through, and what we want to do is feed the insulation through. So that is between the butterfly wings. Let me show you here. So we get the insulation past the first set of wings and the wire at the second set of shorter wings. Then the crimper will crimp the insulation in place to keep the wire from coming out and crimp the wire into the connector, ensuring we have a good connection. So we're going to do that. By just putting it on a little bit and then crimping it really hard. I don't know if you can see that. That is a nice solid crimp. If you're going to be doing a lot of electronics, learning to crimp is a game changer. Making your own connectors is way cheaper, and then you're not reliant on pre-purchased connectors, which usually use cheap wire, or, you know, a short wire length or a long wire length. So you're forced to either waste wire or solder to it. So we're going to go through these really quickly. Oh, I did 3 on that. 1, 2. Push that in. 1 more click. Set it to the top. 1 more click. Flip it over. Let's just rapidly go through these. You know, once you get a groove, this is a pretty fast thing to do. All right. The astute amongst you are probably laughing at me. These are the wires that go to the Arduino. These are the wires I was supposed to put the pins on. Let's hope I can pull them out. My camera woman is snickering at me. All right, at least they all came off properly. I'm going to put this one aside and do the right one. Oh, this is not stripped nearly enough. Just going to restrip these. Hopefully what's becoming abundantly clear is how useful having a long thumbnail is for a maker. I'm just going to use the tip of an X-Acto knife. So what I do, first off, let me make sure I'm going the right way to the right way. I'm going to get the connector this way up and flip it over. There. So this side is black. Oh, I'm getting confused. Yeah, there we go. So I'm just going to push it in and then use the tip of the knife. Oh, I don't think you can really see. I'm going to use the tip of the knife to just grab the back of the pin and just set it in until it clicks. Just like that. And the last thing we're going to do before we put this away is give it a yoink test. Make sure all these wires are set. Perfect. And the reason for doing them at an angle like this is because the connector sits vertically, so that little bit of an angle keeps the connector sitting the right way. And I can put it aside and move on to, I guess I can do these in any order. There. Now to figure out what order to do that, we got our gray and white. Remember, as I said before, it doesn't matter which way you soldered them in so much as you just match up the wire at this stage. There. The DuPont connection is done in exactly the same way, except we're going to use the very first chamber, and we're going to be careful to line that up at the back. It really does matter which way we do this. So we're going to have a look at the power connector. And this one here is the double negative. So you know this side is negative. So negative's running along that side. Put that on there. And therefore, this one is negative. Do not want to confuse positive and negative. There. And we're just going to put it in to double check. Yep. The outside edge, which is the edge going to the double wire, is negative. So we got this the right way around. There. And this one is got a tricky little catch to it, and that is we are going to crimp these resistors. So I'm going to get my wire cutters and cut them about 3/4 of a centimeter up. Then I'm going to pinch and fold over the top. This is very, very important. If I'm going to try and crimp this into a connector with just the wire itself, it's going to fall right out. So what we're going to do is crimp this in sideways, and the crimp will go between this little gap, and then it'll never fall out. So making sure we keep this sideways, I'm going to put it in as far as it'll go, and crimp right down onto it. Oops. There. I'm going to give it a pull. That is never coming out. Move that back a little. There, I'm going to do this middle one as normal. There. Start by putting the middle one in. And I am going to grab, where's the other wire for this? Oh, there it is, under my hand. All right, so I'm going to grab this end and then make sure that we're going the right way here. The other one, there. So we're just going to push those two together and all done. There. Another easy one with a single connector. So the next one we're going to do is the audio. I'm going to start by giving this a bit of a strip. Oh, there's a release on the back here. If you ever get this stuck, it's not quite all the way in, just brace it a bit, push the release, and then you can lift it and seat it in. There it goes. Perfect. So I'm just going to reference off of another one to make sure I get the positive and the negative the right way around. Push these in. A lot of these, all we need to do is stick a power on it. This one is no exception. Gonna reference off this every single time. There. There was a time when I didn't. I paid the price. Well, I guess there was another one. We only have 2 more of these to do, I think. We're just about at the end. This isn't a very time-consuming task, relatively. Well, checking that positive and negative, I'm going to tell you that Arduinos do not take kindly to having their voltage reversed. You will cook the voltage regulator instantly. I don't think that needs anything. So I think we're ready for the next step. That is to solder all of these onto the Arduino. Then we are ready for coding. Oh, we got one more. My bad. I painted a connector. Oh, we got 2 more. I remember. Totally forgot about this, but you remember how we painted these red and black? Well, I went off and painted a corresponding pair, red and black, off camera. I think you can figure out how to do that. And so we just need to do that. Then we're ready for the Arduino. Whoops. Fortunately, being a double negative, I don't really have to care which way around this is. Again, any of the other plugs, with the exception of the black, can serve as our positive, but I just like to color code it, and it also just reminds me to be extra careful when dealing with this plug. I'm going to be careful to go the right way around. There. Now we are ready. Oh, actually, let me strip all these right now. We're almost ready. And do the speakers as well. Okay. Now we got it all ready. We just got to grab our caddy. There. I'll show you the caddy. This is not the same caddy as from video 1. I got frustrated with that caddy and realized I do have a lot more space than I thought, so I thickened it up everywhere that matters. I also made the speakers sit in better and then added a deeper channel for the microphone. So this one is way easier to deal with. So I'm just going to set the speakers in advance. Just like that. And so I have my little cheat sheet here. You don't need it because you can find the pinout on GitHub and use that to follow everything. So the first thing I'm going to do is the most annoying, and that is the voice recognition. Okay, CS. CS is D12, which should be the last pin on this row. D12 right there. So first thing I'm going to do is CS on D12. DC on D11. That is blue. That's much better. Okay, and now it's yellow, which is SDA. Just going to A4. A5 is SDL. SCL. Voltage is going to the 3.3. This is extremely important. If it goes to 5 volts, it will be no more. I would like to note that it says on the spec that it can take 5 volts. It can't. I have 2 in the garbage that can attest to that. And finally, one more double. Sorry to spring this on you, but the ground over here is going to get the ground from the boot LEDs and the ground from the OLED in the same port. So since we're already on the LEDs, what are we on here? The green LED is going to D6. The red LED goes to D7. And that's that done. I'm going to do the voice recognition now. Go D2. Why this wire is a little bit shorter. And then D3. All right, let that drop. Clip that back. Smooth that back over. I'm gonna go to trigger is D8. Oh, that's getting really crazy in there. is oh, that didn't quite go in. And reload is D9. So, last thing we're going to do is the audio. The RX first, which is purple on D5. All right, and the TX next. That goes to D4. Let's see if we can grab it and spin it around a bit. Now the last thing we got to do, well, aside from the speakers to each other, is to get this whole caddy in the clamp and solder the speaker wires in. Hang this all by the speaker wire. And you're going to go crosswise. And we'll take it back. And back again. What we're going to do now is get everything installed in the caddy all nicely. And then go upstairs and code it all up and test it. So the first thing I'm going to do is get the voice recognition and the Arduino into their spaces. I'm going to grab their respective screws. Hold on. And I'm going to screw them in place. There, and now the voice recognition. Just gets these 4 little screws. Hold it in place. And screw it down into the right spot. Be sure I don't get those thin little microphone cables. I'm going to pull that up. Get the wires out of the way and slide it into the hole. There. If it's loose, you can add tape or glue or whatever. I find I just like to hold it in place. It stays pretty good. Now, for the audio, they mount like this and turned this way. Oh, I forgot the screws for the audio. I'm going to get something called alien tape. It's my favorite sticky double-sided tape. Cut a little bit off and stick one bit to the back of the MP3 player and one bit to the back of the amplifier. Stick those on the back. Actually, here, I'll turn it around so you can see. I'm going to stick them as high as they can go without hitting the speakers, which is fairly high, to give as much room as I can for the wires underneath. There. I'm going to screw those in. Forget to plug in the LED. The fire LED, that's the 7-segment LED, needs to be plugged in before you put this side on. So plug that in, try to keep it around the wires. And now we're going to run it in. Perfect. Okay. Now I'm going to plug in the OLED screen. There. This is good to go. Good to go. Now, for argument's sake, I'm going to swap this with a done one for testing. Grab myself a charged battery. Now we're going to plug all of this in. Well, we're going to plug some of it in because we're going to test this slowly. First, 7-segment LED, the Arduino, and the voice recognition. This should be enough that we can train it with. I'm going to bend the resistor up in there. And, oh, and obviously the action button, otherwise we can't turn it on. Hold on, gotta untangle all this. This one goes into the black one. There. And we are going to reserve the power, and we are going to reserve the audio system until after the rest works. So let's take this upstairs and start training it. So we are starting with a completely clean slate here. We don't have Arduino installed. We don't have anything to do with the Lawgiver installed, any Arduino libraries. I'm going to show you how to do it from scratch. And we're going to start on arduino.cc. We're going to go to Software and find your operating system, in my case, Windows, and contribute if you wish, but we're just going to download it. So let's get Arduino IDE installing and jump over to the Props3D GitHub. We're going to go onto Dredd Lawgiver and download the zip file. So we're going to open the Arduino IDE. Then we're going to go into the Dredd Lawgiver, and we're going to go to the libraries directory in root here. When you install the Arduino IDE, it recognizes components by libraries. So the MP3 player has its own library, the voice recognition has its own library, and there's something you would generally have to track down. But Craig has been amazing and has compiled this all into a libraries directory that you can just copy and go to your Documents, Arduino, and paste it in here. If you already had any Arduino libraries installed, they'd already be in a libraries directory, but as this is a clean install, it's a brand new directory. So let's go back to our directory, and now we're going to go into Extras to start. And Craig has been awesome and created a training script to automate the training specifically for the Lawgiver. And if I go back here, an auto load script. That's going to just auto-load all these for us. Once it's auto-loaded, we never have to touch it again. So to connect to our board, we're going to go to, oh, it's automatically detected. If it wasn't automatically detected, you can go to Boards and select the Arduino Nano, and then select the USB port it's plugged into. If you don't know which USB port it is, simply plug it in and unplug it, and then one of the COM ports will appear and disappear. That's your one. So we're going to go upload our sketch. And once that is done uploading, we're going to go to Tools, Serial Monitor. Oh, we don't see anything because we didn't open that up in time. So let's just upload that real quick with the serial monitor open. And then there's our text. So it's going to tell us what to say. In this case, armor piercing. We just have to hit enter. Armor piercing. Armor piercing. And that's it, it's trained. If you don't like the way you say a word, what I do the second time is just say something completely different. Incendiary. Banana. Incendiary. Incendiary. So I'm going to tell you a little trick for when I'm doing this kind of voice training. If I want it to be broader, so like sometimes I have a deeper or higher voice, I like to say it in two very different ways. And that way the voice pattern recognizer will actually have a spread it'll recognize. I'll show you in this word hotshot here. So I'm going to clear this out and push enter. Hotshot. Hotshot. And if I say it any way between that, it'll recognize it. It also actually creates a little problem of false positives. So just be aware that the further the range between you saying those two words, the more likely that if I say hotshot or hot pot, it'll recognize it. Just as a note, though, these things are pretty incredibly accurate. High X. High X. Stun. Stun. Full metal. Full metal. There. Oh, it's going to scroll down. It's going to be rapid. So I'm just going to clear it out again. Rapid. Rapid. And we are all trained. So before we unplug this, we're going to go to our auto load. And we are going to upload this sketch. And then we can see on the serial monitor here, it said auto load successful, power down. So we're going to unplug this. So I'm going to tilt this up just so you can see. I'm going to be careful about it. But there is a solid light over here. If the light is solid, it means it's not actively listening to voice commands. So since we have an auto load, we are going to unplug it and plug it back in. Now, weirdly, I usually have to do this twice on USB. Oh, never mind. It works. If it stays solid, all you have to do is do that again. So we should be ready to load the final Lawgiver script, which is the easiest part of this. So we're going to open the Dredd Lawgiver script and upload it. And if we're lucky, we'll see the OLED power on. That means we're good to go. As long as you can see the Props 3D logo, you are good to go. Excellent. So we have the red LED showing that our boot sequence has failed. We hear the sound. We are rocking. The last thing we want to do is I'm going to unplug this. And I brought up a battery module that's all ready to go. And I'm going to plug it in. Then I'm going to switch it on and hold down the trigger button. This counts as the ID validation. Let's give it a quick check. Hot shot. Armor piercing. And we're going to check the reload. That's it. It's all programmed. Let's head back downstairs. We're done. And with that, we come to the end of part 2 of our epic Dredd Lawgiver build. We've got all of our electronics coded and ready for installation. We've got our action-only part done, and our 3D printed parts all sanded, primed, and ready for final finish and paint. So join us next time as we put this together and create our finished electronic Dredd Lawgiver.
To be continued on Props 3D.